Hi yogis, welcome to our practice for the third limb in the 8 limbs of yoga. We're going to be working on pranayama. But before we get to the actual pranayama, we're going to do some work to prep. So first taking a block or some kind of prop, sticking it underneath your hips. That way we find ourselves in a very tall, comfortable seat so that the belly and the diaphragm are free to move and the pelvis is slightly tipped forward. From that tall seat, we'll start to settle and become aware of our breath. Just watching as the breath comes and goes and noticing what it feels like. We want to cultivate awareness to start. One hand comes to rest on the chest and the other hand comes to rest on the belly. Having the hands placed there gives us a feeling of feedback. As our breath moves, our hand moves. Gradually trying to find more and more movement underneath the hands. We'll focus on the center of the chest by bringing the palms together, drawing them into the heart. And then we'll start to add our movement into our practice, opening the arms out into a T. Starting with a side bend, letting your right hand drop down to the ground, your left arm sweeps up overhead. Feeling how this opens up the space for breath on one side. And then we'll lift up to center and do that same movement going the other way. Opening up the side body, feeling that extra space for breath. Coming back over to the other side. Sort of a slow sway from side to side. Taking a full breath in each side bend and then coming back to center. Taking your block out from underneath your hips. And then we'll make our way into what's sometimes called a mermaid position. The feet are off to the right side of the mat. And then we'll layer a side bend on top of that. Bringing the right hand down toward the mat. The left arm is up overhead. Back into center. Now this time, as the left hand drops down, you're lifting up onto your shins and sweeping the left arm overhead or open behind you. Release the hips down. Move back toward your side bend. Going toward the right. And then another lift. Left hand comes to the ground, lifting the hips up. Lowering back down into your side bend. And then another lift. Bringing the hips up, sweeping the arm overhead. This time as the hips come back toward the ground, we're going to swing the feet the other way, bringing the feet toward the left. We'll go through the same sequence on the other side, bringing your right arm up and over the body into a side bend. Coming up to center, place that hand down behind the hips, lift the hips up, and find a side bend or maybe even coming into a back bend if that feels good. The hips lower down, coming over into your side bend. Pressing the right hand into the mat, lifting your hips up. And then lowering back down, flowing into your side bend. We'll take one more lift on this side, bringing the hips up high, opening the head back, lowering back onto the mat, and we'll transition over onto hands and knees. Starting a cat and cow movement to bring heat and warmth all the way around your spine. Contracting the muscles in the front of the body and the back of the body. Then bringing that movement side to side. Create some freedom through the side body, using that space that you just created in the last sequence. Put those two movements together into a circle, scooping your rib cage down and then up. All the way around, circling one way, and then circling the other way. We'll shake the shoulders and the hips. Shake out the tail. Tucking your toes under. And we'll bring the right knee to rest on the mat with the left leg back. Lining everything up into a knee down side plank, a knee down Vashisthasana. Expand the fingers on the top hand. And then bring the top hand overhead to create a long line all the way down the left side of your body. The arm comes back up from the shoulder. And dropping back down into your table. We'll try that on the other side. Left knee stays on the mat. Bring the right foot back. You're lining everything up. Your left hand, left knee, right foot. Right arm reaches up toward the sky. Bringing the right arm up overhead. The arm comes back up above the shoulder and then sweep it down. Dropping your right knee down. Now coming back to some of those spine warming movements. Arching the spine, dropping the belly. Swinging side to side. Anything that feels good. You can circle. We want lots of warmth and mobility around the rib cage and the thoracic spine. Switching your circles the other way. Tucking the toes underneath. Pressing back and lifting the hips. So we'll pedal the feet there. Drop the knees and lift them up. Pumping back and forth a few times, knees down and then lift. Holding your downward facing dog. Taking your left foot, stepping that up to the top of the mat. So we find a high lunge on that side. The right hand stays on the ground and the left arm is going to start to sweep open and closed. We're going for a rotation movement in the thoracic spine. Opening up, fanning the fingers, and dropping down. It's like you're wrapping your arm around the leg. And then the next time that you come up, let's hold that there for a few breaths. Feeling that openness. Exhale, drop the left hand down. Bring the left foot back into down dog. Let the knees drop down and then lift them. So we're back into our pumping movement. Knees drop and knees lift. This time holding your down dog, we'll take the right leg and step that up to the top of the mat. Now working on the mobility in the thoracic spine, opening the right arm up to the sky and dropping the right hand, wrapping it around your leg. Inhale, open. Exhale, hugging your leg. We'll hold at the top there. The arm is open. The right fingers are wide. Exhale, drop your hand down. Coming back through your lunge. Right foot steps back. Coming back into your pumping with downward facing dog. Knees drop. Now let's drop the knees down and we'll sit back into Virasana, interlacing the fingers, drawing the knuckles back to open up the front of the chest and the shoulders. Take a slight twist toward the left. Come back into center and twist toward the right. Coming back into the middle. And then we'll drop down into table. Toes tuck underneath, lifting into down dog. The left foot steps up in between the hands. Cartwheeling the arms around and coming up into warrior two. Finding a nice, strong stance in your warrior two. So we're going to use this to do some variations to create movement around the rib cage and the upper back. Dropping your left forearm onto your left thigh. Slide over into side angle stretch. Inhale up into warrior two. And then back the opposite way into reverse warrior. Right hand rests on the thigh, left arm up toward the sky. Warrior two, back through to side angle stretch. Try to keep the hips low. And back into warrior two. You can find a pace that works for you flowing from pose to pose. A lot of times we'll call this the dancing warrior sequence. So it's very fluid. There's lots of mobility in the upper back, the shoulders, the chest. Coming back into your warrior two, we're going to windmill the hands down, framing your front foot, stepping that foot back to downward facing dog. Give a little pump to the knees, and then we're ready for the other side, taking your right foot up in between your hands. Angling the back heel and windmilling yourself up, finding a strong warrior two stance. Moving through that same variation on this side, our dancing warrior, we'll start out in a side angle stretch. Opening out into warrior two. Dropping toward the back leg into a reverse warrior. Back to center for warrior two. And over into side angle stretch. You can stay in any of those three poses if you want to hold, or you can just flow fluidly from one to the other. Whatever pace of movement you feel like works for you today. Back into warrior two, and then into your side angle stretch. This is the pose that's really opening up the side body, and if you want to slide the bottom hand down to your calf or to your ankle or even to your foot, just to come a little deeper. We'll return up into a warrior two. Spinning back around, dropping the hands to frame the front foot, and bringing the right leg back into downward facing dog. Dropping the knees down, finding tabletop, adding some of our spine mobility movements in there, cat and cow. Side to side with the spine. And then opening that up into a circular movement, circling the shoulders and the rib cage one way, and then circling the other way. Coming back into table, we're going to transition down onto the belly. Once you settle yourself down onto the mat, we'll bring the hands just underneath the shoulders, using your upper back strength to lift up, sliding the forearms forward into a Sphinx pose. In our Sphinx, we're working on inhaling up into the chest, trying to bring our breath up, and making some space at the back of the heart as well. So the upper part of the lungs. Sliding the hands back, lowering down. We'll press into the arms, coming up through table. Adding a rotation movement here. Opening the left arm up toward the sky and then threading it underneath, coming in to thread the needle. This is a great movement for thoracic spine rotation, which we've been doing quite a bit of in this practice. Now, if you feel comfortable in that pose and you want to add a balance challenge, you're going to send your right leg back, tucking the toes underneath, and open your right arm up. So you're just resting on the left shoulder and the left knee. Dropping the right hand and the right knee down. Pressing into the mat to come back up into table. We'll take that same rotation on the other side, opening the right arm up, threading it underneath the left and lowering down to your shoulder. You can stay just like that, or if you want to open that up, taking your left hand and reaching that up toward the sky, and tucking your left toes underneath, lifting your left knee up off the mat. If you take that variation, just being very careful with your neck and your shoulder, watching that you feel steady with your balance. Drop your left palm down and release your left knee to the floor. Push into your mat to come back up into table. Once you're back up into table, take one more round of our spinal movement series, cat and cow. And we'll make our way over into sitting. So now we're going to get set for our actual pranayama. The body is warm. The side body is open, so now we're ready for breath work.